Hi guys, it's your girl Nthabiseng Mabuya, and today we're going to unpack how to prepare the APC file. So this can be a little bit tricky because many people will tell you it can't be too thick, it can't be too thin. But then one trick I can tell you is that as long as you know what is in your file, that's all that matters. So on the board course I was on, we had 3 assessments, and then the 4th one would be the supplementary if you failed the assessment 3. So all 3 assessments I had failed, and I realized that I failed because of the things I was putting in my file, so the research I was doing. So the first assessment, my file was literally too thick. My file was literally this size, but you see, when you couldn't even put any more papers, that was your girl. That was me. And I just did research, Google questions, and then took articles, put them in the file, and then I said I'll see them in the paper, because right now I don't even know what they're asking me. So I'll see when I get the required. And that was my biggest mistake, because listen, it was a mess paging through that thick file, not knowing what I had put in there, not knowing that I did not need half the things I did, and I researched. And that was the mistake that I had made, and that's the reason why I was at an LC. So LC is basically you are not competent, right? It's limited competence. BC, it's borderline competent, and then C is you competent. C is a pass, and in order to pass the psycho board exam you need to get a C. So your girl, the first assessment, second assessment, third assessment, it was rough because of the research I was doing. So after a few assessments, I realized that, listen, this thick file is not going to work for me, because as much as I have information and the research, I feel like it was good at that time. I feel like it was going to help me. But then because of how I had put all the information in the file without flagging, just putting like one flag to say it's trigger 1 and then trigger 2 for the next batch, that really didn't help me. So I realized that I need to change my approach, and I came across a video where this person was saying, listen, APC, everybody has their own strategy, everybody has their own approach, and one thing might not work for one person but it might work for the other. So it's basically about finding what works for you and running with it. And that's what I did. So I went to my mentor and I asked them how did they structure their file, and they just told me that no, they had like a few flags. And I'm like, okay, let me see if maybe I can do that as well. And I realized that having a cover page is very important, so you can know where everything is. Having that table of, let's say you have your file dividers 1 until 20. So section 1 would be your psycho documents, your psych exam, and then number 2 would be your pre-release information, number 3, you getting the gist of it. So I realized that I needed to have a cover page to see where everything was as a reference, and that was my starting point. And then another thing that I struggled with is basically I wasted so much time flipping through those thick documents, flipping through the file to find the information that I wanted. And eventually in the assessment, I would literally give up because I couldn't find what I was looking for. And I'll think that, did I even print that thing, or did I forget it? And meanwhile, it was always in the file. I just didn't know where to find it. So I realized that going back to the flagging system, your IFRS thick books, how we flagged it, like recognition in IS 16, measurement, subsequent measurement, all of that. I went back to those small files, to those small flags, because that's what worked for me. And listen, when I say, when you find something that works for you, run with it, I honestly mean it, because it's very difficult to use one person's strategy, try to find your feet, and then try to incorporate what works for them as well, what works for you. It's going to be very difficult because everybody's thought process is not the same. So I realized that I work well with color, I work well with structure. So tables are my thing, highlighters are my thing. If I can see what I highlighted, that is me. I will be able to identify the keywords. If I see flags, I'll be able to know, okay, this is on page what, this is on page what, this page speaks on anything that was in the trigger. So that is basically the structure. So this is basically how my file looked like. This is the file I used in the 2023 APC. You can see it's still thick. And when I walked into the exam room, I felt so overwhelmed because people were walking in with files like this. Literally, a flip file was sufficient. And I felt like, I had overdone everything. Will I be able to find the information? But when I went to the exam room, I just said, you know what? Hope, trust yourself that you flag this file well. You're going to understand everything that is in this file. You ask God for strength and he will guide you. And God came through in the thickness. So on the first page, the cover page of the file, I had my scripture, my favorite scripture that carried me through everything, which is Jeremiah 29 verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, right? We all know that verse. And I did declare that I'm a strong believer in faith, and I will declare it until kingdom come, because God carried me through every storm. And I felt like this is very important for me because I drew strength from the scripture. When I was having a panic attack, an anxiety attack, I drew strength from the scripture because I literally told God that, God, you didn't make me pass the supplementary. Yes, I failed assessment 3 and I had to write this up. And I told God that you didn't make me pass that supplementary for me to fail in, the final. It's not your will for me to fail, because these are your promises that you made in Jeremiah 29 verse 11. And you have to live to those promises. And when I was having a panic attack in the final exam, I looked at the scripture and I felt calmness because I knew God is with me. And then we have Isaiah 54 verse 17 that says, no weapon shall prosper. So weapons may form, but I mentioned they will never prosper. When you're a child of God, they will never prosper. And then on our first page, it is basically, I printed out a WhatsApp message from my late dad. I did mention in my previous video that I lost my father. He was a strong support structure in my life. So this message basically was my father's way of telling me that he's with me and he's proud of me, and God got this. So I printed this because I was very emotional when I was going to write the APC exam, because I knew that, if I pass, this person is not going to be there to share my joy. And I had to incorporate my father in the file because, like the scripture, I drew strength from this message. I'm not going to lie. And it really helped me. So the first page would be the index. So I'll basically share how it looks like, because I know it's a little bit blurry now. And I color coded based on the color of the file sections. So the first section is blue. It matches, the first section. And the first section was basically speaking about the admin documents. This would be like your psycha exam paper, and then anything that is psycha related, basically. And then the second file section would be the templates. So these are the templates for a memo, a letter, an email, a presentation. So these formats are very important because on the day, imagine you forgot how a letter looks like or how a memo looks like, right? So this is basically to guide you on how these formats should look like. And then the third section is orange. This is your ethics section. So in the ethics section, it would be the templates on how to answer your ethics question, just the structure. For example, your introduction, who your audience is, if the company adopts King, if they take corporate governance seriously, and then who are the parties involved, is there any lawyers are supposed to be involved, and all of that. But we will cover most of that in the ethics video that I'm going to do. But yeah, then from file section number 9 to file section number 15, we had the various triggers. So we know that we have to answer documents, right, in the form of an email, and it can be document 1 to document 8, or A to, the 8th letter. So basically, I made an exception to have at least 9 triggers if maybe there was an additional trigger. So these are basically where the documents will be. If I did research on those documents, it will go underneath those folders. And then number 16 would be the overall themes. So we always emphasize that it's not only just an auditing trigger or accounting trigger or finance trigger. It's always multidisciplinary. So the overall theme would tie everything back together. Anything that is from a holistic perspective, I would put it in the overall theme so that we can just understand the case study a little bit better. And then number 17, we have the accounting cheat sheet. 18, we have the finance cheat sheet. 19, we have the taxation and the auditing cheat sheet. So these cheat sheets are basically to remind us on how to answer specific section. So in accounting, I would have, for example, the deferred tax recon, right? Because in the test, you are, buningi, and you forgot how to do that recon, or maybe you forgot a formula, let's say depreciation, and it was a diminishing balance method instead of like a straight line, and you forgot that method. It's basically those cheat sheets. And then in your finance, it would be a structure of the valuation, a structure of the capital budget, those smaller yana things, WACC, how to calculate WACC, those formulas, those were in the cheat sheets. And then with the taxation, the same thing applied. With auditing, the same thing applied, but it was very different. Auditing would include your basic procedures that don't cover like extensive trigger work, because obviously that would be in the trigger section, but it'll just be your basic procedures. And yeah, that's basically what I covered in the cheat sheets. And then the last one, I dedicated it to 4IR and technology. So what I realized is that now, as the accounting industry is evolving and we are basically trying to incorporate 4IR to make our lives better, then we need to be more adaptable. So if the technology was triggered, I would slot it in on number 20 and basically have a summary of how it impacts that specific industry or that specific company and how we can use it to be more efficient. Because many of the case studies that we came across in the board course, they spoke about the 4IR or technology or just incorporating a specific aspect of that. And yeah, I slotted that in. So with regards to how I flagged my file, right? I had to go back to basics, guys, because these numbers were not working for me. I had to know exactly what was on which page. So I went back to basics, like how I flagged my IFRS standards. I flagged my file. You see there's many flags here. There's literally many flags there. And that's basically what I did. So going back to basics was very important with regards to flagging, because when I adopted this method of flagging, I knew where everything was, right? So everything that was on this specific page, I would literally flag it. I would write, this is the summary of the entity. So I wrote summary of the entity, and then this is where the trigger started now. And then I would literally flag. So this is how it looked like. So that was how I was able to keep track of everything. And I'm a visual person, so color really worked for me. And then if, let's say, the file section is blue, then the flags would be blue. If the file section is green, the flags will be green, right? So we can see here that the file section is blue. So the flags were blue. The flags were blue. And then the file section here was red. So because we don't have red flags, I had to settle for pink. And then the flags were pink, right? So basically that is how I kept track of everything in the paper. So yeah, if you need any more tips with regards to that, you'll just let me know in the comment section. But yeah, that is how I kept track of everything and all the research that I did for the APC 2023. So the next series is gonna cover how to do research during the 5-day pre-release period, and how to approach an ethics question on the day or to see how it is triggered in the case study, as well as templates that can help you throughout the 5 days as well as on the day, because we tend to be stressed on the day and forget everything. So I think having a template and having a form of structure on the day is really helpful, and that's what really worked for me. So yeah, stay tuned and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.